अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुहू नहमदु नुसल्ली अला रसूल करीम अम्मा बाद आऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी वयस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली. First, I would like to thank you all for taking the time to be here. My name is Sarfraz Arif and I have a more than 25 years of experience in programming using several different languages. Today I am starting a series on how to make Oracle EBS transactions programmatically, through coding. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this series will be very helpful to you if you want to integrate third-party software such as mobile application, or you have a web application and you want to integrate it with Oracle EBS, or if you have just implemented Oracle EBS and you want to migrate legacy data into Oracle EBS. In today's video, I will teach you how you can create order management sales order through coding using PL SQL. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this code will work on all Oracle EBS version 12 or more. Today what we would like to do is that we have a web application somewhat like that, where user has inputted customer information, item information and a rate, and when user tap or click on submit button, we want to save data in Oracle EBS. Or we have a mobile application and you want to post data from mobile application to Oracle ERP. So let's start coding. First we will create two tables in Oracle EBS. Our first table name will be YouTube order headers. There we need 4 fields. First, cust PO number. This field we will use as a web order reference from web application. Next is customer number, data type varchar2. Next is invoice to org ID. Please remember, this is the most important field we need. From there we will fetch all the customer related information. Next is ship to org ID. This information will tell system where user would like to send or dispatch goods. Control enter to execute query. Another table we need is YouTube order lines. Cust PO number as reference key. Item code. Rate. And then finally quantity. Control enter to execute query. Now let's check our working. Select asterisk from YouTube. Our header table is working just fine. Now let's save data into our table. Edit YouTube order headers. Control enter. I'm using edit command. You can also use insert if you want. Just for ease of use, I'm using edit command. Enter customer PO number. Please make sure this order number is unique. Next I need customer number 61465. Next I need invoice to org ID. For that I have to go to examine. If you are a technical user, you know where you can get it from. Copy, paste. Next I need ship to org ID. Some customer has multiple ship to location. In this case my ship to org ID is 144914. Copy, paste, post, save data. Now let's save data in order lines. First, get customer PO number from header, copy, paste. Next we need item code, copy, paste, rate 2862, quantity is 5. Now copy customer PO, paste, item code is this, copy, paste, rate is 4735, quantity is 5, post data. Next we will create one stored procedure for uploading sales order. Procedure name is create YouTube order. We will pass customer PO number and system will return status, transaction status. Control enter. Our skeleton is okay. Now we will write one select statement to get all the information we need for uploading order. From YouTube order header we need cust PO number, customer number, invoice to org ID and ship to org ID. We will join YouTube order header with hz cust site uses all table. Joining key will be site use ID from cust site uses all table and invoice to org ID from YouTube order headers. From cust site uses all we will be needing org ID, primary sales rep ID, text code, Another table we need is OEE transaction types all. Joining key is order type ID, transaction type ID. From OE transaction type alls we need attribute 2. There we have stored sub inventory from where item will be dispatched. Warehouse ID, transaction type ID is order type ID, and price list. Another field we need is sold to org ID. For that we will join HZ cust account sites all. Joining field is cust account site ID, and org ID, field we need is cust account ID. Order management is use it as sold to org ID. Our statement is working. Let's create cursor on it. Cursor name is CR. Now let's write for statement. Before we write for statement, we need two variable. This is required by order interface table. First one is Oracle sys document ref, and the another one is Oracle sys lines ref. Both are number. Let's assign value. We just need to pass unique number. For that I use timestamp. This is how I create unique number. You can use some other alternates. The important thing is we need to pass unique number. Could be anything. Same thing. The only difference is I will append one. We also need line number for order sequencing. Let's write insert statement. OE headers iFace all is a interface table that we use for uploading manual order. Order source ID, Oracle document ref. Next is org ID, customer ID, order date, order type ID, price list ID, currency code, sales rep ID, payment term ID, payment term, customer PO number, ship from org ID, sold to org ID, ship to org ID, invoice to org ID, order category, created by, creation date, last updated by, last update date, book flag, and finally operation code. Now let's assign values. 1001 is a order source ID that we use for uploading manual order. This field we need to supply as a unique key. Org ID, customer ID, customer number. This date will be our order date, order type ID, price list ID, currency code is always gonna be PKR for our, in Pakistan is PKR. You will change as you may like or you want. Sales rep ID, payment term I'm hard coding it as 1045 net. Customer PO number, ship from org ID, I dot sold to org ID, I ship to org, invoice to org ID, order category is order, created by is 1110 sysadmin. Creation date is sysdate. Last updated by 1110 is sysadmin. Last update date is sysdate. Book flag is Y and operation code is insert. Oh, we must ship to org ID. Control enter. We need to declare primary sales rep ID, or we change our field value as primary sales rep ID. Control enter. Spelling mistake. Now let's write one more select command to get all order lines related information. We need select static from YouTube order lines. Field we need are item code, rate, quantity, we also need inventory item ID. For that we will join MTL system items KFV. Joining fields will be item code, concatenated segments, and organization ID will be 101. From MTL system items we need inventory item ID, and code, primary code. Select is okay. Let's create cursor on it. Cursor name is CR lines, and we will use cust PO number as a input parameter. We will add one more criteria. Cust PO number is equal to P cust PO number. Semicolon. Control enter. Let's write one for statement to insert data into OE lines I face all. Our cursor name is CR lines, and we are using cusp PO number as an input parameter. Before we write insert statement, increment or axis line one by one. This has to be unique number, and our order management interface table needs it. Also increment line number by 1. This field we use for order sequencing. Now write insert statement so that we can insert data in OE lines I face all. This is a interface table. Order management uses it for uploading sales order. Field we need to insert our orders source ID, Oracle document ref, Oracle 6 line ref, org ID, line number, item type code, inventory item ID, promise date, schedule date, ordered quantity, order quantity UOM, unit of measure, sold to org ID, ship from org ID, ship to org ID, invoice to org ID, unit list price, calculate price flag, tax code, payment term ID, payment term, sales rep ID, customer PO number, sub inventory created by, creation date, last updated by, last update date, and price list ID. Let's assign values. 1001 order source ID that we use for uploading manual order, LC or XSYS document ref that we get from order header, or XSYS line ref, this has to be unique. Number I.org ID, line number, item type code, inventory item ID, promise date will be sys date, schedule date will also be sys date, quantity, UOM code, primary UOM code, sold to org ID, ship from org ID, ship to org ID, invoice to org ID, j.ray, calculate price flag will always be Y, yes, tax code, payment term I am hard coding it 1045 net, sales rep ID, cust PO number, sub inventory, from which store we would like to dispatch item from, created by sysadmin, sys date will be creation date, last updated by is also gonna be 1110, that is sysadmin, sys date, and then price list ID. Compile, error, we don't have sales rep ID, we need to change it to primary sales rep ID. Spelling mistake, and we don't and payment term, not payment type. Control enter, works. Now let's check our working. Now let's execute our procedure and see it works or not. Exec, create YouTube order header, and we are passing YouTube order 1 as input parameter. Control enter. Let's see, let's check interface table, OE, headers I face all, cust PO number is YouTube order 1. Good. Now let's check line. Cust PO number control enter works. Last step, we will run order input request. This request will upload data, view request, find great. Number of order found 1, imported 1. Let's also check in sales order. F11 YouTube order 1, control F11. Great, our code works. Sorry about that, this video is little bit long, but I think it's needed. If you like my video, please subscribe my channel so that I can keep making and uploading these kinds of videos.